Josh Hart is director of StopSmartMeters.org, an organization fighting the forced deployment of wireless utility meters that harm health, violate civil liberties, and endanger public safety. He completed his master's degree in transportation planning at the University of the West of England and has worked in the energy industry as an urban planner, environmental advocate, and freelance journalist. After learning about some of the dangers of these devices, which include DNA damage, cancer, breaks in the blood-brain barrier, and more, Josh got rid of his cell phone and started StopSmartMeters.org to fight what he now considers to be extremely dangerous devices being forced onto unwilling communities around the world. His organization is sponsoring a National Day of Action Against Smart Meters on October 4th. He has visited with us before. Josh Hart, welcome back to the Global Freedom Report. How are you, Josh?
I'm well. Thanks, Brent. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. Just for those who might not quite be in the loop, what exactly do we define as smart meters?
Well, these are the wireless, typically wireless, digital utility meters for gas, water, and electricity being deployed throughout the U.S., Canada, and many countries around the world at the moment as part of this so-called smart grid. And the global public revolt against these deployments has really grown significantly over the past few months. People are, fed up with the increasing reports of fires being caused by these meters. They are not UL approved, and they've been responsible for hundreds of fires and electrical problems, where people's property has been lost and their lives put at risk. They put out a very intense pulse of microwave radiation, which the utility industry has been lying about. And despite these lies, thousands of reports have come in of dizziness, nausea, headaches, and other health problems associated with the meters, particularly dangerous when deployed in large collections like apartment buildings and so on. So there's a tremendous number of problems with it, including privacy invasions and civil liberties violations. There's a tremendous amount the utility can discover about your private life through your utility usage records, and specifically what kind of appliances you use, even what television program you're watching. And because of all of these problems with the smart grid and with the smart meters, there's a huge movement from local governments and the public saying no to these, refusing to have them installed on their homes. In some states like California, there's now an opt-out where a fee, an extortionate fee, is being charged to keep your regular analog meter. In other states like Nevada, people are being switched off because they refuse to have a smart meter on their home. And particularly troubling.
Yeah, now, why do utility companies want so badly to install these everywhere?
Well, there was this huge kind of flush of stimulus funding from the federal government several years ago, and many utilities snapped up the cash. Many smart meter manufacturers, including Itron, GE, and the communications network supplier like Silver Spring Networks, sort of snapped up this cash, and they see profit. This is a case of utility companies choosing profit over the safety of the public. And we've seen this again and again. It led to the explosion where 9 people died, a neighborhood destroyed in the Bay Area. And with the smart grid, that kind of neglect has gone national and even international, and they're putting what we consider, what I think we have very strong evidence for, are very, very unsafe devices on people's homes. Pennsylvania Energy PECO has suspended meter installations because of 26 fires, and they've still halted those installations. So there's
I know there are a lot of these going on. I'm going to specifically ask you about some of them. We only have a limited amount of time, though, so I want this to be a dialogue rather than a monologue. I just saw a story that Australia's largest electricity provider, Origin Energy, has attached to its offer to provide customers with convenient views of their energy usage a hidden clause that when the customer accepts the offer, the customer agrees to allow the utility to share their energy usage with third parties, including all kinds of corporations and government agencies. Now, as far as you know, are similar tactics being employed in the U.S. once they have the smart meter in? Hey, listen, you just say the word and we will give you a statement that shows clearly how you're using your energy. Won't that be nice and neat? And then they attach these permissions to the rules governing that acceptance. Do they do that in the U.S.?
Well, unfortunately, most of the utilities in the U.S. don't even ask permission to share your data with third parties. And in fact, the California Public Utilities Commission even encourages utilities to share your private utility usage data, in many cases without your knowledge. So I think that is one of the prime motivations for this whole program, getting a hold of the kind of data that is so valuable to marketing firms. And a lot of it is being done behind the backs of consumers. So it's very important to be aware of the kind of information that is now becoming available through the smart grid network, and to really come together as a community and as individuals to say no. And I think that's what's going on internationally. On October 4th, we've got protests in Washington, D.C., in Reno, in Detroit, in 12, more than a dozen different states. So people are very upset about this and organizing to make their voices heard.
There have been numerous reports suggesting smart meters give off small amounts of radioactivity. Can you explain the physiological dangers posed by smart meters?
Well, this is non-ionizing radiation we're talking about, unlike the ionizing radiation from the nuclear power plant. And for a long time, scientists thought that, or believed and told the public that low levels that wouldn't heat you of microwave radiation, communications radiation, wouldn't hurt you. But a tremendous body of evidence has built up over the past couple of decades and has really heated up in the last couple of years since the smart meter deployment, really indicating that there is a serious risk of cancer from continued exposure to the kinds of fields coming from your cell phone, from Wi-Fi, and the much more intense, brief bursts of this kind of radiation from smart meters and the smart grid mesh network. So, recently a group of 54 internationally acclaimed, experts in medicine and bioelectromagnetics have come together and said smart meters pose a serious risk to public health, particularly for children. And based on the evidence, they're warning the public to take heed. And still, public utilities commissions and utilities are forcing things on us. So it's very much a case of people, coming together as a community rejecting us.
You mentioned Nevada earlier. A Nevada utility company recently shut off the power to a woman's house simply because she refused to allow a smart meter to be installed in her home. What gives any company the right to force this technology on homeowners?
Well, they don't have a right, and they've taken this this right from and unless people stand up for it, to them together, it's very easy for them to intimidate individuals. And to go in and threaten them. And what happened to Mona is outrageous. She asked a number of times, I think more than 6 times, for the utility to come out, remove the smart meter. It was causing her headaches. It was causing her a grinding noise, sort of a humming noise in her house, and she couldn't even sleep in it. And they refused, and she hired an electrician. She went through the proper procedure. She got an analog meter of the type that used to be on her house, replaced it. 2 days later, 3 armed Nevada energy agents came to her home and took her analog meter and the smart meter that she had removed and left her without power. And she's been without the connection to the grid now for 2 months. The Stop Smart Meters community nationally has raised more than $500 for her and helped her buy some solar panels, and she's trying to make go of it off the grid. But people should have a choice, and this is...
But aren't there legal... I mean, there should be legal consequences. First off, they stole her analog meter. That wasn't their meter. That her meter. They stole her analog meter. Secondly, they trespassed on her property. And I mean, don't homeowners have the right to not use smart meters? It's my home. It's my property.
Absolutely. When push comes to shove, you're right. We do have the legal right to refuse and to tell them to get off our property, and we don't accept their meter. But utilities have been lying to people, saying that the meters are mandatory, saying that they'll face fines. In many cases, lying through their teeth, but a lot of people don't know what the threats are and leave them. So the facts are that you don't have to accept one of these things on your home, and that you don't have to pay a fee to not have one. But utilities are saying that you do, and this is a case of people going forward in a legal setting and fighting it.
Well, now in the case of Mona, the woman in Nevada, has she taken legal action? I mean, has she done anything? I would imagine there would be lawyers lining up to take her case.
Well, I think she's been in touch with a couple of legal firms, but I think particularly attorneys who are well-versed in utility law are really badly needed to stand up for the rights of Americans and people from elsewhere who are really, these rights being violated. And in many cases, the enforcement authorities like the sheriff and the police are on the side of the utility companies, even when they're breaking the law. So it's very much a case of communities having to stand up for ourselves and as well pursuing legal action and holding our elected leaders accountable. Sort of combination. Stop Smart Meters has and many other groups around the country have taken peaceful civil disobedience direct action, and that is often effective and sometimes the only effective way to really stop these installations in communities. Because even if you don't have one on your home, you might have one on your neighbor's home, which is closer to your bedroom and might cause you problems health-wise or pose a fire or electrical risk to the neighborhood. So it's really a case of a community issue, and communities coming together and saying we don't want utility coming here and protesting in the streets if need be.
All right, we got Craig calling in from Kentucky. Craig, welcome to the show. You're on with Josh Hart of StopSmartMeters.org.
How you guys doing today, Brent?
Just fine.
I'm sorry for interrupting, but I know you're in a hurry. You're time pressed. But I had a comment to make that's indirectly related to health. I don't believe anybody cares anymore because I took a person yesterday, just for the sake of privacy, I won't mention their name, to a hospital ER to have those people evaluated and admitted for suicidal thoughts, and they wouldn't accept them because they said one of the criterion that they had to use for admission was had they already attempted suicide. So why would you need to take a person, and I have this on audio, by the way, if anybody wants to say that I'm lying about it, I have it on audio. But why would that be a criterion for the admission of somebody to a psych ward or to be treated for suicidal thoughts? So they don't care. They don't care.
Well, I think there's definitely something to be said on that. It's a little bit off topic, and so I'm not going to get into a discussion on it right now, but I appreciate the awareness, and I appreciate the call, Craig. Thank you much. And it is...
In terms of smart meters, the health effects have been severe in some cases, and when people complain about them to the medical establishment, they are often sent to psychiatric wards or pretend like they're crazy. Actually, they're experiencing real health effects from the meters. And so your caller brings up a point that, some people have, in fact, been driven to suicide or suicidal thoughts by radio frequencies, and something to be aware of when you're living environment.
Well, and when you're dealing with bureaucrats who sit there and say, well, according to my bureaucratic rules, this is not a health problem, therefore you're crazy. If my bureaucratic rules say it is a health problem, in other words, Gulf War syndrome didn't exist until the government said, oh, it does exist. Then suddenly it existed.
I think we're in a massive denial about the effect of wireless. I think once society starts connecting the dots and putting tunes together, connecting a headache or ringing in the ears to exposure to the local cell tower or your cell phone, I think there's going to be a widespread revulsion of wireless and a kickback against into a more wired, safer communications network that's based on fiber optic cable rather than ubiquitous cell towers everywhere. So that's I think where things are going in the middle to longer term.
Well, I would not look to any relief on these issues from the federal government, but have states anywhere introduced legislation concerning smart meters?
Well, Vermont has passed legislation to provide the public a free opt-out, so they can choose an analog meter or a smart meter on their homes at no extra charge. And other states are looking into that legislation. It's something to contact your state legislators about. There's most of the energy and the grassroots opposition to the program has come from local municipalities like cities and counties. In California, more than 57 local governments have formally opposed smart meters, and that's spread across the country. So local government is definitely a place to organize, and pressure needs to be brought to bear on state governments and the federal government, particularly President Obama, who authorized these funds, and both parties have been very supportive of the smart grid. But there are problems now that they have to take into consideration and deal with now that the stimulus funding has all been spent.
What about the upcoming National Day of Action?
Well, this is happening this coming Thursday, October 4th. This is the International Day of Action to Stop Smart Meters. It's being organized by the Wireless Radiation Protection Coalition and the National Campaign to Stop Smart Meters. It's happening different kinds of events, from protests in Detroit, Michigan, and Washington, D.C., to smaller events, and people attending local meetings, doing flyering and teach-ins. But the point is that many places around the country, internationally, are taking action to stop the smart grid, to stop smart meters. We've currently got more than 20 different events in more than a dozen states in Canada. Looks like the UK is going to join us, and we're very excited about that. And we've got flyers on the website, which is actionday-to-stop-smartmeters.org. That's actionday-to-stop-smartmeters.org. The full details can also be found on our website, which is stopsmartmeters.org. New places come in every day. Yesterday, we spoke to a group out in Vermont, and they're planning a protest. Even though they've got the free opt-out, there's still widespread smart meter networks being deployed, and people have problems from them. So people are speaking out there in Detroit, in Reno, Nevada today, Las Vegas, all over the country, and international. So we're very excited about the huge groundswell of support and how this is just spreading through social media and across the internet virally. People are coming up with new events. So I encourage anyone who goes on the website, you can go to actionday-to-stop-smartmeters.org. Check out if your local area is one of the areas that already has events, and if it's not, it's really easy. Get your friends together, get some signs, have an event, take some pictures, and send them to us. And it really makes a statement that we're all in solidarity in support of the safety of communities.
Josh, you said Action Day to Stop Smart Meters. Is the 2 T-O, or is it the number 2?
T-O, Action Day to StopSmartMeters.org.
Action Day to StopSmartMeters.org. Are you planning on more of these days of action in the future?
Well, I think the opposition movement is growing, and unless we see a full recall of smart meters and public independent investigations into the problems with them, there's going to continue to be protests against these. It can only grow as the problems and the narrative, the kind of pulsing radiation and the extra power draw that the smart grid is responsible for. As these problems worsen, there are going to be more people fed up with the status quo and going to be fighting back. And those are some basic constitutional rights that we have: so safety in our home, pursuit of happiness, and it really raises questions. This whole thing about how our government and these massive private corporate utilities are scheming behind our back and not consulting, asking, even when it affects something as personal.
I got to stop you. I got to stop you right there,
our own home.
Josh.
Yeah.
I got to stop you. I want to give out the contact. The websites are www.actionday2. That's TO. Actionday to stopsmartmeters.org and www.stopsmartmeters.org. Josh Hart has been my guest. Best of luck. Best of success of National Day of Action. Thanks so much, Josh, for being with us.
Really appreciate you having me on, Brent. Thanks again.
God bless.